Stepping outside of the box. Um, yesterday I did my very first gig and it went really well. Um, I didn't really have too many issues, like any technical issues. There was a few things that I wish I would have executed better on, but it wasn't critical. But it did make me think it's finally time for me to realize that I've already taken the step out of the box. I believe when we sit down and think about taking the step out of the box, it's more like, oh, it has to be this huge, significant form of movement. I realized that I left a job and started doing this on the side, and then I got a full time job. And now I'm doing it again, except I'm not leaving my job this time. But it made me realize that we sit down and we overthink what it takes to actually move forward. And I'm in this situation now where it's like, now that I've stepped out of the box and I'm being able to see, at least for now, the starting opportunities in front of me, my mind begins to race. Over the last couple years, I've been buying a bunch of different stuff, and I never really stopped and tried to put it all together. But it's funny when everything just falls into place, and I'm starting to see that now. I had an idea 2 years ago, and I was patient. A lot of stuff happened between those 2 years, and now I'm in a space where I would have thought almost 10 years ago, I would have never been here. I would have never thought about this reality or how this came to be. Excuse me. And a lot of it came from the aspect of simply allowing things to happen and not being too hell bent on them at that moment in time. And I say this to say, I realize the power of writing down your thoughts or writing down your wants. Um, Ironically, in college, I made like a little resume that I don't think I've ever used it for a job. No, maybe once. Probably not though. But I remember I drafted up this resume and it was in reference to me creating my um, entertainment company or whatever. I can't remember the exact name of it. And I've always said, I want to be a production studio, right? Like, it wasn't anything crazy. I don't come from a background of like crazy cinematography. Honestly, I watched a lot of music videos. I really enjoyed like the different things that they presented to me. I thought they're relatively unique. And it's not necessarily like a singular music video, but just like the cinematography that goes into being able to paint another individual's vision and where they're happy enough to present that on top of on top of another body of work that they've already created to be experienced. So from the aspect of getting started in this field of content creation and really doing this more to broaden my skill set, mainly because I was just bored. At that time, that job was entirely boring. There was no real thought to it or effort to it anymore. And I was like, I'd rather do something where I'm actually not only uplifting myself, but uplifting others. And it got to the point where now my production studio vision is really taking shape, right? I'm doing a few other things in the background for myself, but now I'm really starting to see, okay, now that I've stepped out of this box, and as far as the box is concerned, it could be whatever it is for you, maybe like a fear, maybe something that's keeping you still, anything that you could possibly say, this is the thing that is keeping me stagnant. Step out of it. and give yourself the ability to make motion. I'm not going to lie. I did not foresee myself learning as much as I have within this year as I did. Not only just taking a step in this direction, but I also have realized it's made me move a lot closer to my own dreams and desires simply because I did not remain rigid and in a still form of what it is that I'm looking to achieve. Mainly it's because you have to be able to accept the risk, which effectively outweighs the reward in a sense, because it's about taking those continuous risks and seeing what comes out of it and really giving yourself the confidence to continue taking the risk or stepping out of the box, however you want to define it. But simply making I'll put it like this, giving yourself the mental framework to position yourself to say, I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to hold myself to a certain requirement. I'm just going to do it to do it. It's a very unique thing as far as how your mind changes, especially when you're focused on simply learning and just being able to absorb the experience while also just continuing to do whatever you're doing, but also coming back and saying, oh, well, if I stop and look at this piece and look at this piece and look at this piece, how many of these are connected? And if when I take a bigger step back, how many of these pieces that I've just realized are interconnected are truly connected to the full frame, we should say, since I gave a poorly stated microscope reference. Anyway, I really just want to focus on being able to challenge yourself. Stepping out of the box isn't necessarily as clear as it always appears, even when you're saying it from face value, because how does someone step out of the box in a situation where they've been repeating something for 20 to 30 years? And I believe that's more of a framework. And at the same time, life is all about risk. You have to risk something to gain something else.
Daddy, please stop.
And I'm at the point where I'm realizing that, yeah, I'm going to have to make a bigger risk, and not necessarily crazy risk, right? But just bigger risk to see a bigger reward. And I was recently just allowing myself to truly see everything, right? I haven't really taken too many days. To be honest, I haven't really taken 24 hours to really sit on the experience. But I realized for me, just being at the venue at the time, I started to realize, wow, there's a lot that really goes into this. And there's a lot that I've realized I've learned and I was willing to do as a child. Even though the field looked much different back then, now that I'm an adult, there's really not much of a difference. At this point, it's more about execution, communication, and upholding yourself to the pedigree that you present to others.
You need to go.
And I just finally am starting to see, it's really about standing on, for me personally, it's about standing on my integrity. Standing on business. You feel me? Let me stop. But in all seriousness, it's really about just being consistent with the presentation that you give to others. And I've realized for me, I've kind of practiced this a lot in my jobs. Not too much of a big deal personally, but it was always like, oh, I'm going to tell somebody I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to, double back and make sure that I finish that out before I move on to the next thing. And I realized that translated into my business life. My personal life, I do the best that I can, but I'm not perfect. And now I'm seeing that because I gave myself the ability to step out the box, I've given myself the mental framework to also see things differently. and see what I've also gained from this situation. Excuse me. And I realize what I've gained overall is confidence, the ability to say, I want to do this again and I want to get better at it. And I'll tell you the truth. I've never really thought about it as far as YouTube is concerned. But when I stop and look at my life from a holistic perspective at this moment in time, I have continued to step out of the box just because at times. Sometimes I believe it's the most sensible choice, not necessarily saying, oh, this is the choice to step out of the box, so let's step out of the fucking box right now. But realistically, saying, okay, well, this is a better decision for me when I frame this other choice in this way. What could come out of this? Moving to a completely different environment. And then just seeing yourself either sink or swim by the choices that you choose to make. That's just an example, but giving yourself the ability, simply the ability to step out of the box and be open to the experience is more than enough to say, will I do this again? Or maybe this isn't for me, I should try something else. But most importantly, you're building your confidence and you're building your ability to be competent at the same time. So I would highly advise, taking your chances, taking your opportunities, and just being open to really what happens. Honestly, there's really no point to shoot yourself in the foot before you've even given yourself the time to stand up, prepare yourself for the day. Doesn't mean once you're prepared, you then blow your ankle off. But you still have the ability to be the person who makes the biggest difference for yourself. So instead of blowing your leg off, use the gun as a crutch. And when you start running, maybe you might want to shoot it behind you. It might give you a boost. Or that was just a dumbass joke. Anyway, but in all seriousness, you're really giving yourself a better reference, which would be more accurate, would be like a bird taking off, and you're giving yourself the ability to fly by going to new heights and allowing the wind, aka your experience, to continue to guide you upward as you continue to flap your wings or, continuing to take your next experience, yada, 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 yada. However, I believe it's imperative that you just give it a go, step out of the box and see what you get. I'm in the process of focusing on making videos that I enjoy, but not necessarily forcing myself to maintain a strict, rigid schedule, at least at this time, but a strict, rigid schedule to actually give quality content that I'm enjoying and really being able to see what works best for me as the individual who wants to really share these experiences and really my thoughts overall that will improve your lives if you're willing to implement simply taking the information in and just processing it in the way that you think makes the most sense for you. But overall, I want to say thanks. Most importantly, please tell me your thoughts. You can share it if you like. I'd appreciate it. But most importantly, have a good one, and I'll catch you in the next one.